Hi. So, this evening's story is titled The Daffodil Case. It is from this collected short stories of Ruskin Bond, published by Penguin. So, it's a really short one. So, let me start with it. It was a foggy day in March that found me idling along Baker Street with my hands in my raincoat pockets, a threadbare scarf wound around my neck, and two pairs of socks on my feet. The BBC had commissioned me to give a talk on village life in northern India, and ambling along Baker Street in the fog, thinking about the talk, I realized that I didn't really know very much about village life in India or anywhere else. True, I could recall the smell of cow dung smoke and the scent of jasmine and the floodwaters lapping at the walls of mud houses, but I didn't know much about village electorates or crop rotation or sugarcane prices. I was on the point of turning back and making my way to India House to get a few facts and figures when I realized I wasn't on Baker Street anymore. Wrapped in thought, I had wandered into Regent's Park, and now I wasn't sure of the way out. A tall gentleman wearing a long grey cloak was stooping over a flower bed. Going up to him, I asked, "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me how I get out of here?" "How did you get in?" he asked in an impatient tone, and when he turned and faced me, I received quite a shock. He wore a peaked hunting cap, and in one hand he held a large magnifying glass. A long curved pipe hung from his sensuous lips. He possessed a strong steely jaw, and his eyes had a fierce expression. They were bright with the intoxication of some drug. "Good heavens," I exclaimed, "you're Sherlock Holmes." "And you, sir," he replied, with a flourish of his cloak, "are just out of India, unemployed, and due to give a lecture on the radio." "How did you know that?" I stammered. "You have never seen me before. I suppose you know my name too." "Elementary, my dear Bond." The BBC notepaper in your hand, on which you have been scribbling, reveals your intentions. You are unsure of yourself, so you are not a TV personality, but you have a considered and considerate tone of voice. Definitely radio. Your name is on the envelope which you are holding upside down. It is Bond. But you are definitely not James. You are not the type. You have to be unemployed, otherwise, what would you be doing in the park when the rest of mankind is hard at work, in office, field, or factory? "And how do you know I am from India?" I asked, a little resentfully. "Your accent betrays you," said Holmes, with a knowing smile. I was about to turn away and leave him when he laid a restraining hand on my shoulder. "Stay a moment," he said. "Perhaps you can be of assistance. I am surprised at Watson. He promised me here 15 minutes ago, but his wife must have kept him at home. Never marry, Bond. Women sap the intellect." I didn't ask him to write that. This Sherlock Holmes is telling that. "In what way can I help you?" I asked, feeling flattered now that the great man had condescended to take me into his confidence. "Take a look at this," said Holmes, going down on his knees near a flower bed. "Do you notice anything unusual?" "Someone's been pulling out daffodils," I said. "Excellent, Bond. Your power of observation is as good as Watson's. Now tell me, what else do you see?" The ground is a little trampled, that's all. By what? A human foot in high heels, and a dog has been here too. It's been helping to dig up the bulbs. Oh, you astonish me, Bond. You're quicker than I thought you'd be. Now, shall I explain what this is all about? You see, for the past week, someone has been stealing daffodils from the park. And the authorities have now asked me to deal with the matter. I think we shall catch our culprit today. I was rather disappointed. It isn't dangerous work then. Ah, my dear Bond, the days are past when Ruritanian princes lost their diamonds and Maharanis their rubies. There are no longer any Ruritanian princes, and Maharanis cannot afford rubies unless they have gone into the fast food business. The more successful criminals now work on the stock exchange, and the East End has been cleaned up. Dr. Fu Manchu has a country house in Dorset, and those cretins at Scotland Yard don't even believe in my existence. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. But who do you think is stealing the daffodils? Obviously, it is someone who owns a dog. Someone who takes a dog out regularly for a morning walk. That points to a woman. A woman in London is likely to keep a small dog. And judging from the animal's footprints, it was a little Pekingese or a very young Pomeranian. If you observe the damp patch on that lamppost, you will realize that it could not have been very tall. So what I propose, Bond, is that we conceal ourselves behind this herbaceous border and wait for the culprit to return to the scene of the crime. She is sure to come again this morning. She has been stealing daffodils for the past week, and stealing daffodils, like smoking opium, soon becomes a habit. Holmes and I concealed ourselves behind the hedge and settled down to a long wait. After half an hour, our patience was rewarded. An elderly but upright woman in a smart green hat, resembling Margaret Thatcher, came walking towards us across the grass, followed by a small white Pomeranian on a lead. Holmes had been right. More than ever did I admire his brilliance. We waited until the woman began pulling daffodil bulbs out of the loose soil. Then Holmes leapt from the bushes. Ah, we have you, madame, he cried, springing upon her so swiftly that she shrieked and dropped the daffodils. I bent over to gather the evidence, but my efforts were rewarded by a nip on the posterior from the outraged Pomeranian. Holmes was restraining the woman simply by peering at her heaving bosom through his magnifying glass. I don't know what frightened her more, being caught or being confronted by that grim-visaged countenance with its pipe cloak and hunting cap. Now, madam, he said firmly, why were you stealing Her Majesty's daffodils? She began to weep. She had begun to weep. Always a woman's best defense. And I thought Holmes would soften. He always did when confronted by weeping women. And this wasn't Mrs. Thatcher. She would have gone on the offensive. I would be obliged, Bond, if you would call the park attendant, he said. I hurried off to a distant greenhouse and after a brief search found a gardener. Stealing daffodils, is she? He said, running up at the double, a wicked-looking rake in one hand. But when he got to the daffodil bed, we couldn't find the thief anywhere. nor was Holmes to be seen. Apparently, they had gone off together, leaving me in the lurch. I was overcome by doubt and embarrassment. But then I looked at the ground and saw daffodils bulbs scattered about on the grass. Holmes must have taken her to the police, I said. Holmes, repeated the gardener, and who is Holmes? Sherlock Holmes, of course, the celebrated detective. Haven't you heard of him? The gardener gave me a suspicious look. Well, no, I said, apology. Sherlock Holmes? And you'll be Dr. Watson, I presume? He asked. Well, no, I said apologetically. The name is Bond. That was enough for the gardener. He had seen madmen in the park before. He turned and disappeared in the direction of the greenhouse. Eventually, I found my way out of the park, forgetting that Holmes had let me down a little. Then, just as I was crossing Baker Street, I thought I saw him on the opposite curb. He was alone, looking up at a lighted room, and his arm was raised as though he was waving to someone. I thought I heard him shout, Watson! But I couldn't be sure. I started to cross the road, but a big red bus came out of the fog in front of me, and I had to wait for it to pass. When the road was clear, I dashed across. By that time, Mr. Holmes had gone, and the rooms above were dark. So that is the story here. I don't know if it continues because it has dropped the story in the middle of nowhere. So we'll find the continuation somewhere and I'll carry on next time. Thank you.